Support WrestleTalk!
Tell a friend. Hello and welcome to WrestleRamble. This is Luke Owen, I'm Ollie Davis, and today we're delving into the mailbag, including our guiltiest pleasures, unpopular opinions, and WWE slave names. If you want to go straight to any of those discussion topics, click the timestamps in the video description below, or stay right here, where we're going to be doing a little plug for our little Patreon exclusive podcast version of this show. Tell them about it, Luke.
So if you are a $5+ Patreon backer,
$5+,
a $5+
Five time.
I'll try that again.
Sorry, kept on talking over the plug. I don't like it when we do things too slickly.
No, I was going to say you like it when we're a bit more fumbling all over the place. What was it that word said last week on The Apprentice? She said you were. She was basically trying to say that you were fumbling around words, but she didn't quite use the word right. Oh, that's annoying. I can't think what it is now.
But what an anecdote! This is the part. This is why we're so consistently rambly.
Anyway, if you are a $5+ backer on Patreon, you get access to the WrestleRamble Extra. That is a monthly podcast where we review pay-per-views from wrestling's past. Last month was Money in the Bank 2011. You know the one with the infamous CM Punk thing. And this month, because it's October, we decided to have a bit of a spooky theme. So it's quite a lot of October. In fact, they were all October-based pay-per-views. We're trying to do the monthly-based things because it makes it a bit more seasonal, I suppose you would say. So we had Halloween Havoc. We had the 20th anniversary of Hell in a Cell, the debut of Kane, and the death of Brian Pillman. We had a pay-per-view that Dave Meltzer said was the best event of 1997. ECW had a pay-per-view in October, and that was on there. It featured Just Incredible when he was champion. And TNA's very first Bound for Glory, which, I'll be honest, did better in the poll than I was expecting. But I can now reveal that the winner, the pay-per-view that we are going to watch and review, we're probably going to do it next week, is Halloween Havoc 1998, which features, of course, the infamous Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior -5-star match, but also the fantastic match between DDP and Goldberg.
And I haven't watched, I don't think, any WCW pay-per-views from top to bottom. That's a lie. I think I watched Bash at the Beach 97.
Yeah?
That's where Hulk turned heel?
That was 96.
Yeah. So I've watched that one. But other than that, yeah, I'm looking forward to some 98 WCW, their biggest money year.
It is. Are you excited for a whole 3-hour pay-per-view of Tony Schiavone doing commentary?
I like Tony
Schiavone. I know, that's what I'm saying. I was saying it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I am. It's going to make watching WWE current day that much harder.
And I think we get Bobby as well.
Great. Should we do some crap gimmicks before we dive into the mailbag?
Let's do that.
I've got Darren Barker here from YouTube. Their pitch is the serial killer. Now, I'm gonna say something before we get into this. I don't think this is gonna have many opponents based on the gimmick.
Yeah, there's
one.
There is a very good line in this pitch that highlights that.
So here we go. The serial killer hates wrestlers with serial gimmicks, like the New Day, and any legends that have affiliations with cereals.
That's where it falls down.
He bathes in milk baths, which is the blood of his victims, in a giant bowl and cuts promos in said bath. So in my mind now, I've got like the famous picture of the woman is a burlesque thing in the champagne glass.
Yes.
I was going to say flute then, but I thought that's a very skinny woman who would just be entangled in a tube, in the sort of martini glass. And yeah, I'm picturing him lounging around in the milk Cleopatra style.
See, what brings to my mind is a 90s television show, The Word, which was a British thing, where it used to have a segment on there called I'll Do Anything to Get on TV. And I'm pretty sure that had one to do with a bath of beans. But the one that always sticks in my mind is when they had a very heavy-set woman on a exercise bike, pouring with sweat, and then she just lifted up her arm, and a man went in and licked her armpits, and then looked at the camera and said, I'll do anything to get on TV.
Wow.
Do you never watch The Word?
That doesn't ring a bell, but that is 90s.
It's very early 90s. It
That
featured
is
like
90s.
Nirvana had one of their first UK appearances on there.
I kind of prefer that gimmick.
Well, I'll do anything
someone
to get on
who would
TV.
do anything to get on TV and wrestling. That's pretty solid and crappy.
Yeah, that is good.
Pretty solidly crap, which is what we're looking for. Let's continue with the serial killer. He comes out with a shovel, as it's a crap gimmick, and he can't get a massive spoon from the props department. because he's crap. You see, I think you're missing the point. It's not meant to be like a bad gimmick, like that sort of respect.
But no one likes him.
Yeah, it's meant to be like this would work much better with a spoon.
Yeah, I like the fact that he cuts his promos from like a giant cereal bowl and comes down to the ring with a giant spoon. That'd be like his version of the sledgehammer.
Yeah, if you add a shovel into it, like, and you bring the backstory, you are complicating something that is purposely one-dimensional.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. His theme song is Cheerio, Cheerio, Cheerio.
Cheerio, cheerio, cheerio.
Is that how it goes?
It is, yes.
I didn't know. He beats people up so much, the paramedics...
That got you a little bit, didn't it?
Because I can, like you see a few. I kind of read things before I say them out loud as I'm reading. It's a talent, and I saw the bit I was about to read. So I don't know if I'm going to do this justice now.
Do you want me to?
No. I want. This means I've got to do this now. He beats people up so much, the paramedics end up carting the wrestler away. The wrestler away in an ambulance. Carton
away.
The wrestler away. A carton of wrestling
milk.
cereal.
Yeah.
The finisher is a variation of the code breaker, but he calls it the Cocoa Pop. Americans won't get that, but it adds to the crapness.
I think they call it Cocoa Krispies.
Okay, sure. Culture clashes. So, although that did make me chuckle, so that doesn't really work for me either.
No.
That's not, like, remember we had the fireman gimmick a while ago?
Yeah.
And all the, he's been burned, you're going to get fired. That stuff worked on the commentary because it was so in your face. That's still a crap pun, but it's quite subtle.
It only works when it's written down.
So I would prefer it if the wrestler would just be, like, the defeated wrestler would just be put in a giant cereal box.
Yeah.
That would be crappy.
Or, like, when he beats them up, you know how the NWO used to spray paint NWO on their back? He would do it, but he would just pour cereal onto them.
Pour milk
onto them,
and another bit of, another box of cereal as well.
Yeah.
So why does he hate cereal, though? Where's the crappy backstory?
I was going to say, I don't think he does hate cereal. Or why does he hate cereal? That's the real downfall of it, is he hates cereal-based wrestlers, which is only one, which is the New Day. And I like how you've just written, and any legends that have affiliations with cereal, of which I don't think there are any.
Didn't any from the 90s? I know Randy Savage had Slim Jims.
Yeah.
But John Cena's been on a Fruity Pebbles.
Oh, yeah, Fruity Pebbles, I suppose. Kurt Angle was on the box of Wheaties, I believe.
Cool. So those are big names. So, New Day, probably going to end up being the most decorated tag team of all time. John Cena and Kurt Angle.
Well, I suppose if you're going to pick on three people...
Yeah, do you really want to bring them into this serial gimmick, serial killer? Yeah.
I kind of like it, though.
It's not working for me.
No,
Plus,
okay.
because this is our roster, right? So we can't... No one else has a serial gimmick for him to work with.
Yeah, I suppose.
We'd have to do a lot of stuff to base around.
In which case, if I was to amend this pitch to be able to sign him, because I do quite like this, I would take out the hating cereal, I would take out the shovel, and just replace it with a guy he's the serial killer, but he loves cereal.
That makes it much better.
Yeah, he cuts all his promos from a cereal bowl, does the whole cereal thing as we discussed, and carries a giant spoon, which is like his version of the sledgehammer.
You fixed that for me, actually.
Oh, thanks, man.
And yeah, I'm signing that.
Yes.
Well done.
Well done, serial killer.
Well done, Darren Barker. We'll call that a joint effort, though, because your initial one had serious fundamental flaws for me. Brandon Powell, next, last one from Patreon, has said, Nelson Nightmares. A youthful-looking babyface dressed in children's footy pyjamas.
Footy is football for the American viewers.
Oh, I thought they were a type of
footy
pyjama,
is
like they
footy,
had feet
lads.
as well.
Oh, really?
Like it was a onesie.
Oh,
with...
maybe. I read that as footy, as in like, hey, Dad's go watch the footy, lads, down the pub.
Maybe it becomes apparent later on. When it's time for his comeback in a match, he very suddenly gets up from the mat, eyes closed, after taking a particularly impactful move, and appears to be sleepwalking while having a nightmare, thus giving him the adrenaline and rage needed to finish off his opponent with the finisher, the go to sleep. During his nightmare state, it would almost be like he's working heel because of his intensity, but he would wake up and snap back to plucky baby face after the bell ends. After the bell rings. What's wrong with us?
Where did that come from?
Because the match ends. That's an example of me not reading ahead and filling in the words myself.
God, that's hilarious.
Is bell end a thing that translates across the pond?
I don't know if it is. That feels very much like a British slang term.
It's quite East Endy. That is a penis.
Yeah.
If you didn't get that.
That's very funny.
What do you think about Nelson Nightmares?
I mean, okay, so here's my only issue with Nelson Nightmares, because I really like the idea of it, because it's a bit like that Festus thing.
I was going to say Festus.
It's very Festus-like.
Luke Gallows.
Yeah, poor old Luke Gallows. But I am someone who sleepwalks.
I was going to bring this up, yeah.
And so I know that when you sleepwalk, you're not particularly intense, and you're not particularly good at anything. I can walk places, I can get to things, I can pick stuff up and put stuff in other places, but as opposed to actually accomplishing tasks, probably not that good. Like if you caught me while sleepwalking and asked me to do something, I would not do it effectively.
Sorry, I've still got the giggles a bit from earlier. I thought don't laugh, and as soon as I thought don't laugh, I sniggered. So your problem with this is that it's not believable enough for you.
It is not representative of sleepwalk. Oh, hello, Santino's gone.
We've got a t-shirt down.
Yeah, it is not representative of sleepwalkers. I feel like I would be offended watching this because he is not representing me on screen.
I'm not particularly into this gimmick. It's almost. I like the pajamas because that's pretty crap, especially if he's got the sleepy hat.
Sleepy hat, yeah.
Maybe you can have some comedy bits where you have like a butt gap, don't you?
Yes,
on some pajamas. Maybe that could be a thing. But overall, it's not really... I don't know what it is. It kind of works in bullet points on paper, but it isn't grabbing me.
Yeah.
Maybe because the cereal thing was so colourful. Do you have any funny stories about sleepwalking? You ever woken up and been in a pool of blood that isn't your own?
No. Thankfully, I've not done that far. I've not pulled a Michael P.S. Hayes.
Well, someone got off through murdering their wife because of sleepwalking.
Yeah, I know. I remember the story, but I've not done anything like that. No, in fact, actually, if anything, I'm more protective when I'm sleepwalking. So I'm quite active when I sleep. Anyway, sometimes I don't get up and move around or go to another room. Like I've walked into our spare room. You've seen our house. So I've gone to as far as our spare room before. Sometimes I'll just go to the kitchen, but more often than not, I just do things in and around the bed. So with actually my ex-girlfriend, I was staying at her place, and I saw in my mind's eye, the Terminator laser dot in the first movie, where it's like you put your finger on the trigger and you point the dot where you want the bullet to go. You can't miss. So I saw that coming in, and it was pointing at my girlfriend. So I literally dove on top of her and be like, "Don't move." And so obviously she's asleep, and then she wakes up going, "What's going on?" I was like, "Shh, don't move," because I think it knows we're here. And she's freaking out. She's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Shh." I was like, "Don't say anything. Don't move. I'm just going to check and see if everything's all right."
And you had your eyes open, or what?
Yeah. I have like my eyes open and everything. And then I looked round. It was the standby light on the TV, and I was like,
"Yeah."
And then because what happens is when I realise what it is in the real world that has triggered my sleepwalking, my sleep movements, my night terrors, whatever you want to call them, I then just go, "Oh, it's fine. I know what's going on," and I just go back to sleep. So I literally was like, "Oh no, it's all right," and I go back to sleep. So then she's absolutely terrified because I've given her no explanation of anything. Yeah. Quite recently, I did it with my girlfriend's quite a jumpy person. She gets scared quite easily, and she heard rustling under the bed, and then she sort of like slowly woke up, didn't see me in the bed. That's because I'd crawled under the bed because I was looking for something in my dream. I was looking for something, and then when I heard her go like, "Luke," I was like, "Oh, I'm asleep," and now she's woken up. So I literally just put my head up and was just like, "Sorry, it was just me sleeping."
Such a happy sleepwalker. Oh, me again.
Yeah, sorry, me again. And then I got back into bed and went back to sleep.
You are awake right now, though.
Oh yeah, it's only when it's nighttime.
That's good. I've got a mailbag down here. It's huge. Can you see it?
Yep.
This This bag is full of mail.
It's one of the biggest I've ever seen.
Whoa!
It's so big and it's so powerful. This is how powerful the mailbag is. There's actually no letters in there, and they just digitally transfer themselves to your laptop.
That's handy. It's very convenient. First up, from Gary Hockin, Gravestone. Gary Hockin on Patreon. He's one of our... So, the gimmick is, if you donate $50 a month or more to our Patreon, boom, you get the answer. You get to
your question fast-tracked, yeah.
I feel like we've pushed the Patreon a bit too much this episode.
Well, people don't like that on the internet, do they?
I don't. Yeah, but I'm with that. I don't like it when...
Why not? I think
one plug. I think one plug an episode is fine. But now, just by circumstance, we've plugged it twice.
I suppose, yeah.
So I'm sorry. Before you hate us, there's probably an advert coming up in about 2 minutes as well. So Gravestone Gary Hockin on Patreon writes, who are your favourite guilty pleasure wrestlers? I always liked the Blue Meanie, although I have never admitted it before. Are there any wrestlers you shouldn't have liked but you did, even if it was just a little bit?
Oh, you should never be ashamed to like the Meanie. I love the Blue Meanie.
Wow, Gary, we just outed Gary here. I hope we're allowed to say that out loud.
I'm afraid he blew himself. That's a good Arrested Development joke.
Nice. So I've written down a few. It was tough for me because I don't really believe in the concept of guilty pleasures.
Same here.
Yeah, so I quite enjoy having something that what other people would conceive as a guilty pleasure, just so I can argue with them.
Well, no, I'm also of the belief that there is no such thing as a guilty pleasure. If you like something, then you just like it. My lady partner recently asked me, because it came on the radio while we were driving on my iPod playlist. Do you remember Vanilla Ice in the late 90s, or maybe in the early 2000s?
Wasn't following his career that hard.
Well, he'd stepped away from his white meat, white rapper gimmick that he was doing, and decided to go into new metal.
Right.
But still doing rap. So he was essentially doing rap new metal. And he did a new metal version of Ice Ice Baby, and it was called Too Cold. And it is awesome. I love it. I think it's great. And my lady partner once said, was like, is this a guilty pleasure for you? And I was like, no. Have you heard how good this song is? This is excellent.
I think guilty pleasure, if you say, oh, I like this, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. That's on you, man. That is not the song or the wrestler's fault. That is your problem.
Yeah.
Because guilty pleasure is a concept, but it is not on the thing, it's on you, I always think. I'm trying to think of a song. I really like Witch Doctor by the Cartoonies.
Oh, really?
I think it's
Are they called the Cartoons?
I believe
I thought
they
were just called the Cartoons.
Oh, well, they called the Cartoons.
I can't remember, to be honest.
You know, ooh, ooh, ah,
ding, dang, walla, walla, bing, bang.
I think
it was written for which movie?
Oh, I don't know.
It was the Rugrats movie.
Was it really?
I think so, yeah.
Really?
Well, at least it was used in the Rugrats movie.
I know the music video. I can't remember any Rugrats in it. I just think if you slowed it down with an acoustic guitar, people will go, holy hell, that's a hell of a melody. So my one I've written down, I guess the most guilty pleasure, I really like Elias. So for current stuff, I really like his act, and I actually really enjoy his matches. A lot of people say he's boring in the ring. Like, he's good with the guitar stuff at the start. As soon as he starts the match, it's just rest holds. If he's got the right opponent, some of my favourite little matches on Raw recently have been him against Kalisto, or him against, or maybe it was Sin Cara. Is he on? They're both on Raw now.
I don't know where Sin Cara is, actually.
Neither do I. And Apollo Crews, even though they've been done to death, I think, him versus an explosive, dynamic person, his style goes really well. And now that he's added the Undertaker thing, did you see the Bubba Ray Dudley tweet?
No.
So Bubba tweeted, just got off the phone with the Undertaker. He is not happy with someone, and I think he even says Elias or. Yeah, so because of Elias has used the old school move on Raw this week.
Oh.
And I don't know if Bubba's just having a joke. I'm sure as hell try and get a news video out of it. But so that was cool.
Interesting.
Elias would be one for me, and I love comedy wrestling. So again, not a guilty pleasure. I'm not embarrassed about these, but some people do not like Santino. I always like Santino. The whole Cobra gimmick, the
See, that's where I stopped liking Santino, was the Cobra. That's kind of where I drew the line of my like for Santino. However, I will say, I loved Elimination Chamber I think it was maybe 2012, when Daniel Bryan was World Heavyweight Champion. And like Santino was put in there as like the comedy goofball, and everyone's like, well, Santino's not getting very far. And he made it to the final two, and they had an excellent back and forth to the point where, like, because that's how good Daniel Bryan is, but B, how good Santino was, but he was lumbered with this comedy gimmick that he was never going to get out of. That there was so many false finishes in there. You were like, I think Santino's going to win the belt here,
because it was Elimination Chamber. That was off the back of Royal Rumble with Alberto Del Rio, and Santino, like, Del Rio thought he won, and then Santino rushed in because he'd never been eliminated. Tried to throw Del Rio
and everyone
over the
had
top.
forgotten.
Yeah, and then Del Rio didn't get eliminated, and they had like a really good. I can't remember if it was really quick actually, but it was definitely
really
tense.
quick. I think he ran in. Or was that? I think of the Rusev one.
Yeah, I feel like there was a minute or 2 minutes of genuine back and forth, and everyone was into it.
Yeah,
and I was like, I didn't know I want Santino to win, but yes, I must say though, I kind of enjoyed the Cobra as well. I popped for it. I think if you're going to go the full way with the comedic concept, it was the world around Santino that didn't work. Like you sort of need a straight person comedy division, its own little corner of WWE for that to happen. But because everyone was not booked like him, the Cobra got annoying. But I thought it was a solid concept.
Yeah, I've got a couple. So I had Santino listed down as well, but a TNA one, Shark Boy. Really, really liked Shark Boy. It was a bit of a weird gimmick. He had a mask that looked like a shark, and he used to do.
Yeah, it was a
that.
really weird gimmick.
Yeah, that was his thing. He used to do that. But I liked it.
You describe what you just did for
for
audio
the podcast.
listeners.
You put your hand up to your head like a fin. That was like his taunt. But I really liked Shark Boy, and it was unfortunately it lost its way towards his end of his run in TNA because they found out that he could do a really good Steve Austin impersonation. So then he just became a Stone Cold impersonator, and it just sort of lost its way a little bit after that, which is a bit of a shame, really. Actually, do you know what? Speaking of TNA gimmicks, well, it wasn't a TNA gimmick, but they used it in TNA. Was Curry Man.
Yes, Christopher Daniels.
Christopher Daniels' comedy character, Curry Man. A big mark for Curry Man. I thought it was very funny.
That's a good point. I would go for Curry Man too. Shark Boy, they were a tag team, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
Shark Boy, not so much for me. I never saw him in the early days. I'm only familiar with Stone Cold Shark Boy.
Ah, right, okay.
But I did like the quality of puns. Can I get a shell, yeah?
Yep.
Was there any more?
I think that was probably about it.
That was probably it.
But he used to drink cans of chum. I think that was his thing. But I remember in TNA, he got a bit of a mini push because there was that movie Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Right.
And Shark Boy, the wrestler, actually got into a legal dispute with them because he said, I own the name Shark Boy, and tried to sue him. And so TNA, trying to capitalize on that, gave him a little bit of a mini push thing and they'd get some mainstream attention, which didn't happen.
Looked good on paper.
It looked good on paper. And a shout out to for a WCW guilty pleasure. Ice Train, just because he had excellent entrance music, and Glacier, who was their Mortal Kombat character that they had. He was awesome.
I'm also going to chuck in Grado, who is a current TNA wrestler, I suppose, Impact, whatever it is. But I've been following him for a long time on the British Indies. He is so much fun. He's another comedy wrestler. Very difficult to understand because he's got a very thick Glaswegian accent, isn't it?
I believe it is, yeah.
And he's
Glasgow.
very, very, very funny and a superb comedy wrestler. Like
Very,
some
yeah.
of the spots he comes up with. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in a wrestling match was him and Madman Manson, who I think maybe he's wrestling again, but he did retire for a while, against Project Ego, which was Martin Kirby and the sadly passed Chris Travis. And they started having, this was in progress in the very early days, because I'm cool, and I liked it before you did, and it was small in the Islington Garage, so a very small venue, and they're having a tag match, and they suddenly, Grado starts moving in slow motion when he comes off the rope, and then they have and I'd never seen anything like this, they just have the next couple of minutes in slow motion, and Grado went to do a flip, Manson ran in and sort of flipped him for him and then put him onto Kirby, and then they ended in a giant conga round the with the crowd involved as well. Yeah, great. Grado.
Yeah.
Next up, from Rollerball Rocco Beverlock, that's his full name, isn't it? Yeah, from Patreon, it's about slave names. From WWE, so that's when someone comes into WWE not a Hideo Itami, but a Kenta from Japan, and he's given a WWE name for trademarking purposes. So are WWE slave names good or bad, i.e. Tyler Black or Seth Rollins, El Generico or Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Dean Ambrose, Drew McIntyre, Hideo Itami, Daniel Bryan? Some of the women in the Mae Young Classic had a name change as well, didn't they? Etc. Were they cooler before WWE, or did WWE make them lame? Y'all please discuss.
I don't think it really makes them lame. Unless it's a really lame name, on the other hand. So, like, when Mr. Perfect's kid came up and they lumbered him with Michael McGillicuddy, like that, like there was a really bad period for WWE developmental names. It was about sort of like 2010-ish.
Yeah.
And that was really because TNA was starting to come on the rise. And they were like, oh man, if we let any of these guys go and they go to TNA with that name, they're carrying across that name value. So everyone, blanket across the board, if you came in, you had to get given a new name. And yeah, some of them were bad, like Michael McGillicuddy, as I said, Husky Harris. What was Fandango? It was something Bateman. Oh no, it was EC3.
Oh yeah, EC3 had a bait. It's not Jason.
Derek Bateman.
Derek Bateman.
Yeah. I just awful.
Percy Watson.
Some of these were just. So actually, that season 2 of NXT has some. Lucky Cannon was the one I was trying to think of.
Oh
Where's he nowadays? Lucky Cannon.
Yeah, that was a particularly bad time. Like you said, it was a TNA thing. It was also around the same time they had a big influx of people, because it was NXT, that first series. Ryback was Skip Sheffield. Yeah. So it's... I fully understand the concept, and that's WWE not only want to control the sort of name value of stuff, so someone couldn't make a reputation as a Kevin Owens or a Kevin Steen and then go to TNA and then they'd have all that name recognition. So that makes sense. Like, from a business standpoint, I can't argue with that. And also, it makes it better from DVDs and the WWE Network and future branding stuff and action figures. WWE now own Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is a WWE creation and name, which means forever they can make stuff that are Daniel Bryan. Bryan Danielson, which is his real name, that's what he'll have to use in 2018 if he does leave and starts a wrestling career elsewhere. So, like, it's so cynical, but it makes so much sense at the same time. But yeah, the major problem with it is coming up with crappy names. Like, Sami Zayn isn't amazing.
The difference now, though, is that they actually have a say in that. So the way that it works now is that WWE go up to you and say, like, oh, you've just signed this deal. We are going to give you a new name. So come back to us with a load of names and we'll pick the one that we like. So the wrestlers themselves are coming up with the names, which I think helps a lot, really. Is why you've seen less naff ones. And if you listen to Jericho's podcast when he interviews former NXT people, the story that they usually tell is that they put the name that they like and then put a load of rubbish names that they don't like in order to essentially say, like, they'll ignore all of these and then they'll just peg that. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll just say, I like this first name and this last name, and we'll turn that into your new full name.
Right. That method of doing one good one and having loads of joke ones beneath is an old Dilbert cartoon, and I'm pretty sure that's how we got Great Balls of Fire earlier this year.
But so I think some of them aren't really that bad. Like Hideo Itami works really well.
Yes, it means pain, doesn't it? Itami,
something like that. Yeah. And like Asuka's a different name. She was going as Kana when she was in Japan.
God, that takes me back. Finn Balor, of course, was Fergal Devitt, Prince Devitt.
And actually, even Kairi Sane has come in. She's got a new name as well. So like sometimes it just works. And what I will say as well is that after a while, you forget about their previous name. Like Kevin Owens now, that's what I hear. I hear Kevin Owens. When someone says Kevin Steen, that's when it sounds a bit like, oh yeah, it was his other name. It also actually works the other way round. When Xavier Woods came in, his previous name was Consequences Creed, which is pretty awful. And he had the Rocky IV gimmick for Apollo Creed. So that's what that was his whole deal. So he came in with the Xavier Woods, and I remember thinking like, that's rubbish compared to Consequences Creed. But now I look at it, I'm so used to hearing Xavier Woods that now Consequences Creed sounds really weird.
Yeah, totally agree. And like you said about the NXT people being allowed input into their name, I think Finn Balor was one of those. He was like, he wanted it to be tied into Irish mythology. Kevin Owens, rather than Steen, his actual name is because I think
his son's called Owen.
Owen, but that was named after Owen Hart, I believe, who was one of Kevin's favourite wrestlers. So that's where that came from. I remember when Bryan Danielson came in, and I was just like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to see him as anything else other than Bryan Danielson. And a couple of months later.
But your little fluff there has just shown that we now just know him as Daniel Bryan.
So CM Punk really was sort of the last name they let for a while. Then there was a huge spate of it.
And that was only because of Heyman.
And now AJ Styles came in, and he came in with his own name, and he paved the way for Samoa Joe being allowed to keep his own name. Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows was Doc Gallows, but he's gone back to his original WWE name.
And that's because he was Luke something in when he was originally. Actually, I think it was Luke
he
Gallows.
Was Luke Gallows,
Luke Gallows first. Yeah.
When in New Japan he was Doc Gallows.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's much better than what it was.
Yeah.
I think from just a Google search perspective. And the idea of bringing in outside names, just capitalize on the most name value you can. I don't know, though.
The AJ Styles one's very interesting because the theory around that is that the only reason he was able to keep AJ Styles is because he wrestled in WCW as AJ Styles. So they were just like, we can carry over that name recognition that's on the network as AJ Styles, and he can carry it over into his current one.
Yeah, where he made his name in that brief stint in WCW in those 2 months or 2000.
Yeah, in those 2 months that he was there.
So David McKenzie on Patreon has an interesting question. It's got both our noggins a-whirring, and then once we started with answers,
the floodgates opened,
to stop. Yeah. So this is David McKenzie now. So on YouTube the other day, watching wrestling videos, as I usually am.
Nerd.
An internet darlings video from the Q&A that Wrestling with Regret organised during the WrestleMania week last year popped up in the suggestions, named Unpopular Wrestling Opinions. The panel consisted of people like the guys from Going in Raw and Adam Blompier from What Culture and others. Now, a lot of answers were pretty vanilla. However, the Lars and Steve from Going in Raw had an answer which really did drew some heat, which was that they didn't care for Bret Hart's work. It certainly drew heat from me, so after vigorously unfollowing from all social media platforms, I got to wondering if you two fellas had any unpopular opinions about wrestling that go against the popular held opinion, like I think Shinsuke vs AJ at Wrestle Kingdom was a better match than Kenny versus Okada, or I prefer Kenta's work over Shinsuke's stuff like that. Would be interested to hear yours if you held any.
Now, I'd actually want to go back, but I think I might agree with him with the Shinsuke AJ thing from Wrestle Kingdom.
That was a great match. I mean,
so good.
They're so good. But they're all really good matches. I watched Kenny versus Okada more recently. But yeah, God, that Shinsuke AJ match was something else.
There's a moment that always sticks, which is the bullet moments when he just did that, and Shinsuke just grabbed it out of the air and just did this over-exaggerated chewing. It's so awesome.
I watched, speaking of watching the suggestions in the YouTube sidebars, I clicked on the evolution of Shinsuke Nakamura the other day, and someone had just put in a montage of Shinsuke Nakamura walking to the ring in every Wrestle Kingdom he's ever been in. And the first one, he's just walking very straight, and he's sort of just wearing a sort of tank top coat thing, just walking along, gets into the ring, prays, gets in, and then next year does the same thing, prays, and that goes on for till 2009, 2010, and then he comes out the next year, and he's kind of like he's got a bit of a shoulder thing going, and he's sort of like just moving his mouth like he's trying to get something out of his teeth, and the next year it's even looser, like he's got a bit of a wave going. And then, I don't know what happens. The year after that, he's Shinsuke Nakamura. He's like rubbing his chest. He's making these weird eye contortions. And then the year after that, he's flipping with like loads of strippers and poles. You know, that famous entrance from 2014 maybe. So yeah, that was. I mean, I don't think it's an unpopular opinion to think Shinsuke Nakamura in New Japan was considerably better than Nakamura in WWE.
Oh, what an unpopular opinion that is.
That's it. Well, when we started trying to come up with some ideas for this, I said to you, well, all my opinions are pretty popular.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, I was actually having a discussion with someone on Twitter this morning. We are recording this on Thursday ahead of time because you're going to
Paris
tomorrow, Friday. But this is in the past, and you're watching in the future. Or the present. And I was actually having a discussion with someone this morning of recording about how they just were not into Asuka and how they just thought that she was actually a bit something and nothing. He argued that him and his friends felt that she was being given, her push was akin to Jinder's push on SmackDown, was completely unorganic and just forced, and that she didn't have any charisma, and that her undefeated streak was meaningless because she hasn't beaten anyone of any value in NXT. And I just read that and I was like, I mean, that's an unpopular opinion in my books because that's just, it's baffling. I think to say that she has no charisma is utterly preposterous. But that's me. But having said that, when you and I have talked about Asuka on here, the consensus online is actually that we're wrong. So maybe that is an unpopular opinion.
I don't know. I think that might be us looking at YouTube comments and it feels like, because the ones that disagree stick with you far more.
Yeah, perhaps.
Because if I could read hundreds of YouTube comments that say, you're okay at this, Ollie. Well done. Keep at it, son. And one guy would go, I didn't think you said that line right. And that's the one that will stick with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, oh, no, I did it wrong.
When I interviewed Paul W.S. Anderson about the Resident Evil movies, he told me when he directed Mortal Kombat, New Line sent over all of the reviews for Mortal Kombat, and they'd separate them into piles for him, all the positive and all the negative ones. And he said that they were essentially an even split for Mortal Kombat. He said, and I read through every single one. For the life of me, I cannot tell you what any of the positive ones said, but I remember to this day all the negative ones. And his words were, after that, I stopped reading reviews because I'll only ever remember the negative ones.
And he got so much better after that, didn't he?
All of his reviews after that were just nothing but positivity.
That's what a tragedy. He missed out on all those positive reviews. So this has turned into a bit of a therapy session. So let's get back to the question. I started writing a few. I'm just going to go through them. Maybe I'll dive deeper. But you can see how they get a bit more unpopular as they go along. Yeah. So Roman Reigns is a good wrestler.
Well, that was the first one we'd said, was that we both really like Roman Reigns and think he's a great wrestler. So, yeah, that's a pretty unpopular opinion.
Vince McMahon is a genius.
I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm. Like, you can say what you want about him at the moment. The fact is he's chosen the wrong guy. He's telling a fantastic story. All the things that are bad on Raw or WWE, you can have a go at him for, but it's not always bad. Like the headbutt stuff, the Shield, lots of things have happened in WWE just in this last year alone that Vince has signed off on or been a part of. Festival of Friendship, he's the guy who approved that, right? Chris Jericho has told that story and even gave some input himself. So you have to take that he is a genius at the same time that he's an absolute infuriating buffoon.
Well, not only that, but like he took a sport, an operation that was very territorial, and was like, no, I'm going to nationalize this. And he took a risk, and he has created an incredible touring brand. This is a brand that goes to different towns, like 5 days a week, goes all around the country, that just picks up and moves to another city and sets up all year round, no off season. And you actually, like, I don't think we really give it much thought when we watch Raw and SmackDown, but the amount that has to go into putting that show on is incredible by any standards. And to do that every single week without fail and without a lot of hiccups, really, in the actual operation of things rarely go wrong. That's a lot of management that needs to be done there, and that's all him. Like that, he put all that together. Not the sets individually, but he's the man behind that all. And he
probably micromanages the rest of a massive corporation as well. But I don't think that's too unpopular.
I don't think it's unpopular.
We've both got one here that we share. In WWE, Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg might be my match of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been well noted that I loved their Survivor Series match, I suppose you could say, from last year. I just thought it was absolutely wonderful. I think it did wonders for both men. And I think that their WrestleMania follow-up was just as good. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I mean, I could watch that match. I mean, it's only like 5 minutes, so it's quite easy to watch over and over again. But it's awesome. It's great. I think the Lesnar-Goldberg feud was absolutely awesome.
It's like a lot of people are going to be, but you just saw the New Day and Usos at Hell in a Cell. We had the Shield, not the Shield. We had, essentially the Shield. We had Death versus the Bar last month. We had AJ versus John Cena at the start of this year. These are the big, excellent matches that spring to mind.
Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne.
But, just they're all like very good. They're exceptionally good in-ring matches. But there's something that Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, in just terms of overwhelming star power, bring to the match. And like for blockbuster quality, and it delivered. That's exceptional to me.
And what I'd also say as well is that 8-hour-long WrestleMania or whatever it was, I can't tell you specific moments from any other match, really. Apart from, the Jeff Hardy ladder spots, maybe from the four-way ladder match. But I can't tell you anything really from the Seth Rollins Triple H match.
Stephanie through a table.
Apart from Stephanie through a table, maybe. Or the Roman Undertaker match, apart from the sexy strip. But like that Goldberg-Lesnar match, I remember so many different moments from it.
It was only 5 minutes, but it felt like everything was crammed in. It was
loved
great.
It.
You've got one here.
I was going to say I might save that one to the end, but okay. I'll let you do yours.
So this kind of follows in from my love of the Brock Goldberg stuff. Celebrities at big shows is a good thing.
I don't think that's that unpopular.
Do you not think? I think it's an older. Okay, here's one. I don't think.
You just think that Jim Cornette doesn't like it.
I don't think AJ Styles is the guy to build a company around.
Now, that is an unpopular opinion because we literally had this conversation on Wednesday's show. That's what that triggered it. I think that AJ is a guy you can build a company around, so why do you not?
This kind of ties into my next unpopular opinion. I think AJ Styles is, I'm going to say it, phenomenal, and he's really, really good, and he should be in the main event mix, without a doubt. Should he be the guy you build your company around? I mean, not at 40 or whatever he is now, and certainly not, definitely not at 40, I should say. And, back in the day, I just thought he was a very good, a really, really good wrestler. It wasn't until he started to align with Ric Flair and he brought out a heel side where I was like, oh, he's got a bit of personality. But that was a long time to make that act really good as well. He had to go to New Japan to find that. And by that point, he's older, I should say. So I think he's a solid guy, but really you should be building it around megastars, Rocks, Stone Colds, Cenas, and that's this brings me on to my next point, which is no one deserves the top championship. We've talked about it before.
Completely agree with you on that
and
one.
That it should be reserved for the megastars. It's not a thing that you just pass around. The Intercontinental title, sure, that's your workhorse belt. Not so much these days, and you've got 2 world championships, so that complicates matters. But if I had everything the way I wanted it to be, it would be just one championship that would be moved between 4 big ratings movers, like definitive ratings movers.
That's very interesting because I think that AJ is someone you can build a come around. The age thing, you're right, does kind of hold against him. However, he's someone who doesn't feel like age is a factor to him. Cena's a similar age, and they're still building the company around him, even on a part-time basis. And yeah, I think that AJ's got the chops to be able to do it. The only thing that really holds him back is his promo ability, and he hasn't got. And when I say that, he is a good promo, but he's not got the promo that can transcend to another medium.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That because I think I'm going to get a lot of angry comments about the AJ thing. I'm not he is a 10 in wrestling. He is a 7 in maybe not even that. I did 6 or 7 in promo. I'm just coming these off the top of my head. And a 7 in character, 6 or 7. I think really to build a company around someone, you want the megastar. You need a 10 in promo and character. The wrestling's actually the bit you can lose a bit off.
A megastar is someone who can transcend wrestling.
Exactly.
So Hogan, Austin, Rock, Cena, they're people that can go out into mainstream events and be recognized as being, you're WWE superstar John Cena. I don't think they haven't really got any guys that could walk into somewhere and be like, you're WWE superstar X.
They could have. Like, if they booked people the right
Oh,
way,
yeah,
but they've
absolutely, yeah.
cut everyone's legs off.
Well, I remember when Swerved came onto the WWE Network, one of the comments that when the show aired, because it's the prank show with the guys from Jackass, Jeff Tremaine, and one of the comments I remember on the Wrestling Observer boards was, when they do outside pranks, it really does expose the fact that none of these people are stars, because they can literally just walk into shops anywhere, not wearing makeup, not wearing wacky costumes, and just not be recognized by anyone. And that really does expose the fact that the wrestlers are within the bubble, they're stars, but outside they're not.
Ashton Kutcher couldn't get away with that.
No, he couldn't.
He'd be recognised everywhere.
Although it's funny, actually. I mean, they're on like season 6 or whatever it is of Impractical Jokers. And my girlfriend, we were watching an episode last night, and she was like, still amazes me that they can walk around places and not be recognised. But I did say, I guarantee you that they record so many things. And I'd about 90% of the stuff they record are people going like, oh, you just got to find that one person who doesn't recognise you from the day.
You've got one last unpopular
I have
opinion
got one,
here.
and
This
I think
is the main event.
I think this is an unpopular opinion, and that is that the Attitude Era doesn't hold up, particularly under scrutiny. Now, the reason why I kind of wanted to bring this one up in this segment is because you often see it in comments like, oh, I wish the Attitude Era would come back. It was so much better then. Oh, make it TV 14 again. It was better when. I was like, yeah, all right. TV 14 wasn't why the Attitude Era was good. But really, if you look at the Attitude Era, which you could argue is, say, 1998, say end of 1997.
I'd say WrestleMania 13.
That's what some people say, but I think you can actually, like, the rise of Austin and some of the earlier DX stuff could be attributed. Like, I think, really, the Attitude Era, in inverted commas, began when you did the Brian Pillman gun angle. Mm-hmm. That, I think, kind of really kickstarts and that's also when you get the Glass Shatter Austin as well, and that's the real rise of Steve Austin. And then you have the Vince McMahon promo, which I think is like Christmas, or like around December 97, when it was like, we're going to have a change around here, and that's when he kind of dubbed it the Attitude Era. So say 1997 through to 2001, the end of the invasion. Within that 4-year period, there's only really a handful of good stuff that's... if you watch an Attitude Era DVD, what do they say? DX invades WCW, Austin McMahon, and The Rock.
Mick Foley winning the title.
But it's 4 or 5 moments, and then there's just a lot of dregs in there. Like, I really love the Austin McMahon stuff, but even that gets watered down when you got the corporate ministry in there. And there's a few that went a little bit too long. Great as it was... But that's one moment. That's one feud. And then you've got the 1999, there's a bit of, like, when Austin went, and they didn't really know what to do, and so that's a bit of a mess. But then it kind of, I think the Attitude Era really picks up in 2000. That's kind of their best year that they had, when you had Triple H on top, him feuding with The Rock, and you had the retirement of Mick Foley, you had the return of The Undertaker. That, as a year, is great. But like some of that 98, 99, 97 stuff doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. And then you got the invasion, which is very bad, especially in hindsight.
Luke shoots on that attitude.
I think a lot of people look at the Attitude Era with rose-tinted glasses, as I do as well.
Sure.
I look on that era and I'm like, man, yeah, all that stuff was awesome. But if you actually go back and watch it, a lot of it's not that great.
We've probably lost everyone now. That subscribe button is
just going to drip. Yeah, Luke hates the Attitude Era. I knew there's a reason we didn't like him.
Still like us, please. That's all we've got time for today. Please click the videos that have just appeared over Luke's face to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk news or WrestleRamble. Subscribe to this podcast on your chosen podcast provider and to this YouTube channel. Support WrestleTalk on Patreon. This has been Luke Owen. I'm Ollie Davis. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was Rambling.